Hello viewers, Super GT here. Welcome to the Lamborghini Huracan Cup. As you can see here, everyone in the top 5 at least going for the Lamborghini Huracan. So this is Daily Race B around the Red Bull Ring, and it really did bring up quite a few very interesting races. The first of which we start here in 5th position, and when everyone's using the same car, at least you know it's kind of a level playing field at the front here. So it's just down to driver skill or a lack thereof. Now this first race, okay, things started off fairly average. We're in the mid-pack-ish. You could say the front group. We're in 5th position. Didn't really go too well, just starting, just your typical start here. Bumping into the back of that guy, didn't really get a good enough exit. But then it began to improve. But then it began to get worse. So we'll have to watch out exactly how that happens later on in this race. So this Lamborghini is very difficult to drive. You may well have tried it. It does seem to slide a lot. It has a lot of oversteer, but you kind of have to harness that oversteer if you really want to get the most out of it. And when you look on the leaderboard times, the top 10 times, they really do make the most of this car's innate drifting ability to really get the most out of it. So we haven't really made up any positions. Well, we haven't at all. We definitely haven't. We're still in 5th. We started 5th. The guys behind, about a second behind at this point, trying to attack this Portuguese driver ahead. Didn't really work throughout the course of this lap. Top 2 just beginning to stretch away. But we're very close coming out the final turn. Coming up the main straight. There is an opportunity to turn 1. But I think often it's best just to wait until the next corner after that. So coming through here, and the Swedish guy is just going to say goodbye as he swerves off viciously to the right hand side. And I think we can revive the Fast and Furious meme, as it's very, very fitting. Anyway, back to the race. Up to 4th, courtesy of that. Portuguese guy defends to the right hand side. We go left. Can we get 2 positions in the space of, well, 2 corners pretty much? Portuguese guy late on the brakes. We can go for the cut back and get the extra speed on the way out of the corner. Going up into 3rd, gain 2 positions on lap 2. And the main problem now is that we are not in the slipstream. So 1.8 seconds behind the Czech driver there in 2nd. He does have the toe of the leader. That's going to be quite a difficult bridge to gap at this point here. But we have to put in some solid laps. Let's see if we can do that as we come through this infield section here. Just patient on the throttle and then powering out to the outside. You see how much curb we use there. Just make sure your left wheels are back on the track before you use the runoff on the entry to that corner there. And we've actually gained 1.6 seconds. We've gained a couple of tenths coming up towards the penultimate corner. Look for the 100 board, braking just after that. Pretty much 75 metres before that corner. Although I found if you're in the slipstream, you need to brake about 100 metres, and that is one of the main things I noticed about this race. I mean, this car is difficult to control even without the slipstream, but as soon as you're in the slipstream it becomes even harder, so you really do have to manage that. And Red Bull Ring is especially one of those tracks where managing your braking points and exactly where you brake and how you manage the toe is very important. Okay, so we've just spotted the driver up ahead with a 0.5 second penalty, the gap 1.7. He's going to lose, well, we'll see exactly how much he'll lose. It probably will be a little bit more than a 0.5. So as we come up to the penalty zone here, he's 1.6 ahead. And we can see the proper gap as we brake into the next corner. But that gap has come down to less than a second. In fact, about 0.7 now. So he's actually lost quite a lot of time, nearly a second, with a 0.5 second penalty. It really just depends where the penalty line is, and that determines how much time you lose. If it's at the start of a straight, you're going to lose a lot more. But there are some tracks where they put the penalty zone almost just before a braking zone, so you're not really going to lose too much time on those tracks. But the situation has kind of changed here then. It looked like from 5th it was going to get really hard to try to make out many positions, but we find ourselves with a possibility of getting 2nd. So let's see if we can do it. Coming into the penultimate turn. Lap 3, more than halfway into this race, 2 laps to go. And the main thing I'm thinking here is the guy in 2nd now doesn't have the slipstream of the leader, but I do have his slipstream, and that makes it quite a lot easier to overtake. We do though have the close attention of the Portuguese driver still behind us, who I haven't been able to drop since overtaking him. Coming out of the first corner, firmly into that slipstream now. The leader with a 0.5 second penalty, so is he going to come back into this battle? We shall see in just a moment around the corner. The Czech guy is going to go defensive. We're going to go to the left hand side, hit our braking mark. Going to try this move around the outside. Small bump, and it just pushes me onto the AstroTurf just by the tiniest amount. We are 3 abreast here. I'm at the front, but we are still somewhat alongside each other. Coming down towards the next corner, downhill braking zone this one, and I'm just ahead, but a little bit too deep, and the Czech driver just comes back through. So back into third. So that was close. I think it might have been possible to go up to second there, if obviously I'd judged that braking point a bit better. But also there was that tiny bit of contact through the hairpin just before, and it just unsettled the car just enough that I couldn't, sweep in and block and go to the inside. But we still have one more lap left to go. The leader, he did have that 0.5 second penalty, but is still a good second and a half ahead. So I think that guy should be fairly safe in the lead unless he really bottles it and does something very stupid. Through the final turn, 1 lap left to go. As we cross the line here, we've got the near enough the faster lap of the race, not quite though. 29.2, guy behind with a lap 0.02 of a second quicker. So not much, but it is slightly quicker. So the Czech guy getting a really good drive off of turn 1, and that's not going to bring me close enough to do a move up into the next corner. So we're going to have to get as close as we possibly can and go for a move into the next one. Hitting the apex nicely, getting a good drive off of there. Using all of the red and white curb, but you don't want to go any further than that, as we saw on the previous lap. So he knows that I'm there, he goes to the inside, defends. We're going to go to the left, the outside, down the hill, into the braking zone, into the corner, and we've given him the space, and we've got this move done. Sensational move around the outside, and we move up into second place with half a lap left to go. And coming into here, I get well and truly sent to the Shadow Realm, unfortunately. So, well, okay, there you go. Not an ideal ending to this race. We made our way up steadily from 5th to 2nd, and then just get shoveled back down to 5th. Absolutely disastrous. And there is confirmation of the results. Post-mortem analysis. Let's see what happens. So I'm on the inside there, and then the guy in 4th just braked way too late. And in the post-race chat, he did blame the Czech guy for braking too early, which caught him out. But make of that what you will. I'm going to go to this race, which was almost a role reversal. This one was kind of similar, but reverse in a way. I went a bit ham at the start. Look at this. First lap, just braked way too late. And luckily I didn't hit anyone there. Go deep, can try and rejoin, and then just settle back into third. Next corner, just going a little bit too deep, probably because my tyres were dirty from going off the circuit. We go down to 4th. And half a lap later, this guy trying to do a repeat of the Fast and Furious meme. He drives off the track, nearly, just regains control. Another lap later, now watch this between the top 2, they just touch there and there. So the Dutch guy goes off, and that gives the Spanish guy a 4-second penalty. So up into the next corner in the braking zone, up the inside, receive a small tap from behind. We're up the inside into first. And it all kind of imploded for the other drivers there, as the Spaniard served his 4-second penalty, and very quickly I find myself quite a long way in the lead. So we won that race. So that one went very well after starting quite disastrously. The first race very badly after starting quite well. We move to the next one, starting in 4th. Let's see what we can do from here then. And the main thing really is just to try to settle into this race, especially for this first corner in this Lamborghini. Quite a tricky car to drive, and you can see they're almost losing control. It's very easy just to make one silly mistake and your race can be over. In fact, Igor Fraga of all people did exactly that at the Monaco World Final. Lost control on that yellow sausage curve coming out of turn 1 and lost control of the car and went all the way to the back. So that was actually an annoyingly good lunge from the Italian there. He made it work up the inside, and I saw him on the radar. Kind of just had to give him space. and I dropped down into 6th place. In fact, the Nissan GTR's come through. He's up the inside into the next corner. I'm going to look around the outside. Can I make something work here? No, not quite. So in fact, the Portuguese guy who was in the last race, or the first race, sorry, up in 1st place at the moment. Bit of an aggressive move here from the Italian. I'm going to follow him through and move back into 5th. So there are 2 penalty zones here, and the Frenchman is going to have to serve one here. So a 5-second penalty for him. He drops down up into 4th, back to where we started. But can we gain from here? Started 4th, went down to 6th place, back to 4th. Quite an eventful first lap as we crossed the line at the end of lap 1, 4 to go, and it's quite a close run thing here. Top 4 within 1¼ seconds up through the first corner. The Spaniard there having a tricky time through that apex. So which side do you go? The tricky thing to decide here, in fact the Italian kind of decided for me. He went to the left, so I'm going to go to the right. As we look up into the braking zone, just swipes across very last moment and doesn't quite go for the move on the Spaniard. I'm going to have to go around the outside as I saw someone else trying to go for a move there. It was the Nissan GTR just behind looking up the inside. But we just about rebuffed that overtake and stay in 4th for now down the hill. Going to have to go defensive here just to make sure this guy behind doesn't go for the move. I go a little bit too deep, but the main objective of that corner was just to keep the position from the guy behind. You might just be able to see that on the radar, bottom right of the screen, if you weren't seeing that already. So I mean, you can drive in this game without having to really directly look behind. You just look at the radar, it really does help. And if you're someone who doesn't use the radar, I'd definitely recommend using it. It definitely does help with overall awareness, trying to see what the other drivers are doing. Okay, so 1 lap later, and it's pretty much the same situation, although the leader has just pulled away slightly compared to a lap ago. Can we get back past this Italian who's having a bit of a tricky, torrid time for that final turn? Look up the inside. I don't have the slipstream, so he's actually going to pull back ahead there, so I'm going to back out. He's going to go ahead once more into turn 1. I brake a little bit too late, and this is the thing we were talking about earlier with the slipstream. You do have to rejudge your braking points as you're going a little bit quicker in the tow. Gets a penalty there, does the driver ahead. So we're going to get past him here, as the next penalty zone is just around this turn. Just get as close as we possibly can, just to make sure we definitely do get ahead. So he's going to serve that penalty here. We're going to go through him as we do there. Bit of a risky move to go through them, but actually the straightest line, so actually save time technically by doing it that way. Into the next corner. Again, this one proved to be really tricky. Not too bad that time, but the car just really squirming through that corner most of the time. And it proved to be the case during the qualifying session as well. That the car was very difficult to drive. We will go through my fastest lap in qualifying for those who want a reference. As this race is no doubt going to come up again. Group 3 at Red Bull Ring. It's come up quite a few times already. Now look at the top 2. The top 2 began fighting on this last lap. I wasn't close enough, unfortunately, to really try to capitalise on this fight. But the Portuguese guy, the Spaniard, close fight towards the end of the race, and just as they crossed the line, it was very, very close between them. And it was only about a tenth or less than half a tenth between them as they finished. We finished 3rd then, so not too bad a recovery, considering we dropped down into 6th place. So not too bad an ending for that one. We go again. We're going to have a look at our qualifying time, and I had a 29.2. I knew that I could improve it, so I went back to try and improve it. And we're going to see that qualifying lap now. So through the penultimate corner, of course, using all of the tarmac and curb that you can possibly use. 2 wheels on the red and white there, and 2 wheels beyond it is fine. You can just about do that. So 29.1 there. Let's see what we can do about improving that. Coming up towards the first corner, you're braking just before the 100-metre line. And then just clipping the curb, powering out. You can go 2 wheels pretty much up to the yellow, but you don't want to stay on there too long. You need to get your 2 wheels back onto the track before the curb ends. Otherwise, you will be getting a penalty. So here, braking probably about 20 metres or 10 metres before the 100 board, and then clipping the apex, powering out towards the edge of the curb, and it's a quick shift up into second. So pretty much as soon as that rev gauge hits the end, you're going to shift up into second. And this is a tricky corner, braking again before the 100. And I was actually quite wide here, but I kept the momentum up and got on the throttle quite early. Watch out for the curb on the outside; it can chew you up and spit you out quite easily. Back out to the outside, turning in just before the 50, and you can see it there. Being patient on the throttle, waiting, and then accelerating back out to the outside. 2 on the red and white, 2 on the green, and then just make sure you get 2 wheels back on the track before you turn into that corner there. Don't use all 4 on the runoff, otherwise you will get a penalty. 2 on the red and white once again, and then coming up towards the penultimate corner, looking for the 100 board, which is the 3rd one along, braking pretty much halfway between that one and the 50, so that's 75 metres. Plenty of curb here as well. And on the entry and the exit to the final corner, 2 on the red and white, 2 beyond it, and you're okay. And that lap there is a 29.0, not too bad. I think I could probably do a 28 if I really hooked it all up. But let's see if that improved lap time can bring us some better joy in these next races. Well, for this one it didn't. I just got bombarded at the next corner pretty much straight away. And that put me on the back foot. The guy behind getting a 5-second penalty for his troubles. And unfortunately that dirtied my tyres for the next corner, going around there really slowly, and by the end of the race I just couldn't catch up. So that lap didn't really seem to help me at all, although that first lap, it just messed up the race really, because it just put me off the group in front. Mr. Disco's there, finishing in 4th. So we go once again. Quite a long video this one, and quite repetitive in terms of the car and track combination, but it did throw up some good races, which is why I'm showing quite a few of them. So well done on making it this far into the video. I salute you. Okay then, starting 3rd this time, so slight improvement on our qualifying starting positions. I did actually look, as the guy in 2nd almost spins out, I did look at my average positions. You can look on the Gran Turismo Sport website, and normally I'm starting about 5th on the grid, 5th or 6th. But when I just put in that extra little bit of qualifying, starting towards 3rd, that's a lot better. Obviously, on Daily Race A, Daily Race B, you don't have much time to get the job done, so you need to be starting as far ahead as you can. Obvious to say, but look at this, right? I'm going to hold this guy to the right-hand side. I'm going to wait, and at the last minute, move over to the left, and actually, that kind of puts him off. He brakes way too early, and well, that guy just appears on the screen just to say how much he loved that overtake. Absolutely scintillating move. Up into 2nd, we turn our attention to the leader of the race. Now this is always an interesting situation, because when you're 2nd, the guy in the lead doesn't have slipstream. There's no one ahead of him, of course, because he's in the lead, and you should therefore have an advantage. I mean, the guy in the lead, they qualified on pole, they are technically quicker than you are, but when you have the slipstream advantage that they don't have, then there's always a chance that you can gain. So you have to try to make the most of that, if at all possible. And don't do this. Don't spin it through the final corner. Almost spinning it. Unfortunately, the horde of drivers behind caught up massively as a result of that. You see just how much further ahead the leader got. A 2.5 second gap now, whereas it was below a 2nd. So that really kind of ruined that race. But it became a defensive race now, annoyingly, because I was in with a shout of possibly winning that one. You never know. But now, it's really tables turned. Roles reversed, I have to defend instead of attacking. Now, this tells us a nice little story. Guy coming in for what looked like not a particularly clean lunge. And it's the Italian guy that we've been racing the last couple of races. So we're going to have to watch out for him. Big threat from behind. A dive bomber. Let's see if he can get close enough to repeat his move. Annoyingly, he did it in one of these races earlier, and it was a really good dive bomb, and I kind of just had to give him the space. But I suppose this is something you have to learn. When you're racing against these certain people, you learn the way that they race, the things that they do. So if he's going to always lunge, then you just have to defend a lot more, quite simply. It's frustrating to have to do that, especially when you have a chance of catching up with the guys ahead, to have to defend all the time. But if that's the situation, then that's the situation. We actually caught up. You see here, the gap down to 1.2. So we're back actually in the slipstream range of the leader, as he just put in a couple of tentative inconsistent laps. And you can see him squirming on the exit of turn 1, as the gap now comes down to pretty much a second. But annoyingly, I made, well, an error, just to put it quite bluntly. A very, very frustrating error, as this race was looking like the tide was turning once again. But annoyingly, we're going to have to serve that penalty here. We're going to do that. Slow down. Guy in third, going to jump me, go up into second. We are still in his slipstream, so there's still a chance of something developing here. So let's see if that can happen as we come down through here. And for some reason, my racing ability just completely deserted me. And that was about as close as I ever got. This was the end of the race. Now, if you think I'm a big bottle job, just watch this. Because the guy in the lead, as we're going to zoom in on it here, there we go, just completely messes up through the second to last corner. And as they come up to the line, yes, you guessed it, he's going to completely bottle it and lose to the Italian who comes through to win with barely meters left to go. So that was a bottle job of the decade. Congratulations to that French guy for winning that award. But there we go. I do hope you enjoyed the video as always. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for the support as always from everyone. If you would like some more Super GT content, do check out my Instagram and Twitter linked in the description. But that is all from me. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day. I shall see you next time. Goodbye.